Hello and welcome to the Discover History YouTube channel, and if you watched our video, hopefully you'll be watching in anticipation about what we're about to do. So I asked you to get a number of objects for this craft, this beautiful Saturday craft, and therefore you should have in front of you one orange, bigger the better, 1 teaspoon, a sharp knife, which is why it's so important to do it very carefully or get an adult to help, a bowl, or alternatively do it over the sink, because trust me, this is pretty messy stuff, kitchen roll or toilet paper, a bandage, an old piece of sheet, an old shirt, just slice it up so it looks like a bandage, peppercorn, not that important, but if you've got it, even better. And salt. You definitely need salt. So, if you remember to the video, back to the video we did yesterday, we asked you to get those items ready because what we're about to do is mummify an orange. Now, this video was initially designed for Bex and her daughter Beth. Hope you're well, and hello from not only myself but also from Helen, and we've also got 2 other people that are going to take part in this, at least 2 other people taking part in this, and that is Theo and Joanna. So hello, hopefully you've got all those items and you're ready to start. So what we need to do is mummify an orange. This is sort of copying a practice that goes back to ancient Egypt, but I will say here, just like not every Roman wore a toga, not every Egyptian was mummified. And mummification is a process that developed over many years, mainly by accident initially. People were buried out in the desert, in the sand, and amazingly the bodies dried out. They looked pretty realistic even though they were dead for hundreds of years. And the Egyptians had this great idea of the afterlife, and therefore it was so important to make the body look good in death as it was in life. Now, we like to use primary sources. It's so important not to just read what's on the internet. It's so important to actually go right back to the original sources. And even though we don't have the papyrus scrolls, what we do have are books like this. Now, this is the Egyptian Book of the Dead. That's our word for it. However, the original word, the Egyptian word, and I'm not speaking Egyptian here, was the chapters of coming forth by day. And this was a book of spells. So each page in this book originally, you had spell 1, spell 2, and it was all in preparation of taking the body from the life they've lived into the afterlife, the most important part of their being, basically. The Egyptian Book of the Dead, and I'm going to call it that because that's what we call it in modern times, is beautifully illustrated as well, and it shows everything from the embalming process, the person going from being a dead person to becoming a mummy, and it also shows things like the weighing of the souls, where the heart was put in the scales and a feather was placed on the other side. And obviously, is the heart heavy in bad or is it light in good? And that will determine if they get into their afterlife or not. So we're going to mummify an orange. Why did we choose the orange? Remember back to the video. We, as a human being, is covered in a pretty tough outer layer. We're very wet and squidgy on the inside, and an orange is perfect. Pretty tough skin on the outside and squidgy and very liquidy on the inside. The funny and interesting fact is not all humans were mummified. You also get the mummification of animals as well, and you can go to Birmingham Museum when the lockdown finishes and you'll be able to see mummified crocodiles, mummified birds. You've even got mummified cats, and remember, cats are very important in ancient Egypt. So what do we need to do? You need your bowl, or you need to be at a sink, because trust me, the first part is pretty messy. If we were doing this with a person, and I do not recommend it, it is illegal, you would have to wash the person. So my advice is take the orange, give it a nice wash. We're not going to use River Nile water or special oils, just wash it under the tap. And this was done with the human body. You then need to take a knife. Now, for people like Theo and Beth, make sure your parents help with this one. And parents, adults, careful, because it's a knife, it's very sharp. So what we need to do is take our body, our human person that's going to be mummified, and we need to place the knife in the top and then put a slit all the way down the orange, down to the bottom just there. So you're going to slice it open. And this was done, horribly thinking about it, was done to people when they were going to be mummified. They had to open up the side, usually on the left hand side, and once that was all complete and the body was bandaged, it was usually a plate that covered the wound up as well with hieroglyphics on. So we're going to slice the orange open. So you should end up with an orange that, if you are of a certain age, you will remember should look a bit like Pac-Man, basically. So slice up an orange, open it up. Now, just like a body when it was being mummified, you have to take all the squidgy contents out. And the reason for that is that's going to make the body decompose. That's going to make our orange go all mouldy and horrible. So we need to remove the innards. And this was done very carefully. The embalmers in ancient Egypt took 40 days in total to mummify a body. So we're going to use our spoon and carefully, and this is absolutely messy. That's why I said use a bowl, do it over the sink. Take out the innards. So this could be the lungs, it could be the liver, it could be the stomach, the intestines. And interesting fact, if you want to eat them afterwards, do, because we don't like wastage. We didn't eat body parts years ago. What the Egyptians used to do is take all these body parts, the different ones, they used to salt them separately, embalm them separately, bandage them up separately, and put them into canopic jars. So if you wanted to, maybe do the same process we're doing with the orange skin for each individual item. Wrap them up, cover them up in salt, and put them into their own little canopic jars. Maybe get some yogurt pots as little canopic jars. Maybe use some egg boxes. That's what I've seen used. So you use the bottom bit and then put another one on top to be like a proper jar. So we're scooping out the inside. Now, in ancient Egypt, the only thing that was left inside the body was the heart, because it was the only way the soul would recognize the human remains in the afterlife. It's also needed for the weighing of the soul, so it was very, very important. The brain was a difficult one to get out. If you were going to take the top of the head off to scoop the brain out, the person in the afterlife would have a very silly cut mark around the top of the head. So the brain was removed very, very carefully. And what they used to do is take a hook, and that would go straight up the nose, and the hook was used to hook out the brain in parts out through the nose and into a bowl. And the interesting thing is, apart from things like the heart being left in and then the liver and so on being left in jars, the brain was always seen as not important. It wasn't seen as the thing that ruled the body, so it was actually thrown away. So we should now have an empty orange with very little damage to it. It's so important not to damage the body. So we should have just the slit across, and it should be empty. Now, once you've done that, you now need to take some salt and some kitchen roll. The kitchen roll needs to go inside. It needs to pack out the inside of the orange. Now, this was done in ancient Egypt with a human body, and it was done usually with linen bags full of salt, or literally the salt was put in. And the idea of this is it's going to dry out the inside of your orange. Now, you don't have to do this all today. You could leave it overnight to completely dry out the inside, or you could leave it until this evening. I'm too excited when I do crafts. I tend to rush things, so I'd probably do this in about an hour's time. Once you've done that, take out the packing, and this is exactly what was done in ancient Egypt as well. And then we need to pack it. And what the Egyptians used to use is straw, linen bags of salt again. So what we're going to do is take some salt, pour some salt inside. You don't need to use tons of it, but you need to put enough in there, shall we say, a good amount of salt, because that's going to dry it completely out. And we also need to pack it, and this happened with real people as well in ancient Egypt, because when you take everything out, people tend to lose their shape. So we've got peppercorn, and the peppercorns are also a packing agent. So you can now put peppercorn in. Peppercorn is has got a nice smell to it, was around in ancient Egypt. But the other reason for peppercorn is, if you think of some of the mummies, let's say Ramesses the Great, when they x-rayed his body, his nasal cavities were full of peppercorns, and that was really to push his nose out, because when they had finished salting the person with natron salt, this salt solution, people tended to go all shrivelly and very thin. So it was to pack them out, to make them look human again. Once you've done that and you've left the body, left the orange, you don't need to leave it for 40 days. You can then start the wrapping. And all you need to do is take an old bandage, maybe some toilet roll or a cut up shirt or a sheet, and mummify your orange. Once you've done that, put it somewhere nice and dry. Airing cupboards are very good. And then what I want you to do is check on it, maybe in a couple of days' time. Has your mummification been successful? If it has, the orange will be looking pretty good, as people did when they were mummified in ancient times. Why is it called a mummy? As I mentioned in the last video, usually they were painted in a resin, and the Arabic word is mumia, which is why we use the word mummy today. So hopefully, Theo, Beth, you've got all the equipment ready and you're going to spend the afternoon mummifying your orange. Let us know in comments, let us know in videos, let us know in photographs. Please go on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. Let us know how you did, and especially show us what your mummification was like. Hopefully it's better than mine. I'm trying to do everything in front of you with just a bowl in my living room. Anyway, stay safe, stay in, and happy mummification. See you soon.